we have a microphone right here in the aisle in the middle, and you know, let's not try to beat things up. Let's try to be legitimate, and you know, so we can wrap this up, because I know people do have other things to do. So with that being said, we've got somebody at the microphone.
Use the PA mic, that's everything. Put it up. That's just the camera mic.
Yeah.
Okay.
1, 2, 1, 2. Welcome to California. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Mark McAfee. I have a question regarding organic milk. How is it handled within the federal pool system, where those organic milk prices are obviously much higher than some kind of a pool price? How are the organic milk producers handled?
And as far as minimum pricing goes in the federal order program, there's no differentiation between organic milk and regular milk. There is in the advertising and promotion programs, as you're probably aware. But you're absolutely right. They do tend to carry a premium, but that'd be an over-order price. So the federal order does not, you know, we consider all milk. So in terms of producer payments, they're kind of easy to audit when it's organic milk, because they're getting something way over the blend price. But of how the order price is, it's the same minimum level price as any milk.
So the processors are free to pay whatever they want within the organics community?
Free to pay over the federal order minimums. Yeah, there'd be nothing. They have to pay at least the minimum. They have to pay, the processors have to pay the class 1 price. And they want to pay more than that, there's no restriction on it.
Is there an obligation to pay into the pool if you're an organic producer in some kind of stabilization or redistribution of how do I say this? Prior, you know, class 1 versus other classes in an equalization pool?
No. Again, the federal order makes no differentiation between organic milk and regular. All pricing and allocation procedures apply to milk. You know, we don't on the federal order side. We make no difference.
Thank you very much.
Any difference would be right on the payment side from that on their own above orders.
Thank you very much.
Bill, I think you stated that in order to effectuate... My name is Joe Paris. I'm a dairy consultant and do a lot of work with Gallo Farms. I think you stated that it takes, in order to get a federal order approved, 2/3 vote of the producers or 2/3 vote of the volume of milk, one or the other.
That's correct.
Okay. In other words, if California wanted a federal order, the thing would need to be done first is you'd want to know if 2/3 of the producers were interested in having a federal order, and then somebody would need to write that order and effectuate it. If you don't have 2/3 of the producers even interested, it wouldn't be worth the time to put it together, would it?
That doesn't sound like a question, so
The question is, would it?
Again, I couldn't speak to that. All I can say is, as you pointed out, that if the Secretary determined that a hearing was warranted, and there was one, and we issued a final decision, if there wasn't that type of support of 2/3 of them, then it would be done.
If you had the 3 largest co-ops in California jointly submit a proposal, that proposal would go through probably.
Again, that would be something that would be decided in D.C.
Let me rephrase that. The hearing would probably be called under that situation.
You know, again, the decision to, and I'm trying not to be evasive, I'm trying not to answer questions I'm not qualified to.
Yep.
So the decision on whether to hold a hearing or not is not a market administrator's decision.
You're right.
Good morning. My name is Cornell Kasbergen, and thank Tom and Western United for putting this together. As you can tell by what we've listened to this morning, it's a complex issue. There's a lot of detail that goes into this. Just as for background, CDI, DFA, and LOL have submitted a letter to Congress to have written into the Farm Bill the language that will allow California to go into the federal order with quota. And that's our first step in this whole process. Doesn't mean we have to go in, but it's a road we can go down. The next process, is just to actually put it together and see what it looks like, have the hearings, and then at the end of the day, if we want it, we can vote it in or out. It's a win-win situation, because if the state doesn't fix the problem. We have the federal order to go to. So I think it's a road we need to go down. I thank Western United for doing this. One issue that, or one fact, I'm not sure, that should come out is what's the economic benefit? And it's easy to figure. You can take the 4A to the class 3 and just all the way down the line and figure it out. And I've done it. And it comes out anywhere between 90 cents and $1 a hundredweight more if all the milk stays in the pool as it is today. So, most of you know we have a dairy in California, or in Wisconsin, and just got our milk check for our settlement for August. $3.75 a hundredweight more for milk in Wisconsin than California. We can't win that horse race. You know, we're on the way to going broke. This is something that will give California dairy producers $1 million a day. $1 million a day. So I would encourage all your producers that are out there to encourage your board of directors to put as much effort into this as is needed, which is 1,000%, and get this state on the right track. Thank you.
Thanks, Cornell. I kind of like Jeopardy. There's a question there, but I don't disagree. Rich?
Yeah, my name is Richard Wegner. I just have a simple question about California standards. How would we, if we had a federal order that was strictly California, would we be able to maintain our standards that we have in California?
You know, I know that's good, and I probably know as much as people that have been reading things in the dairy press. Again, from a federal milk order standpoint, that's not something, you know, that's not something that we would decide. I believe there was some input from California to Washington, D.C., getting some type of clarification on that. But that, again, I don't know. But I think that that's something you would go through either your elected representatives or through again I would suggest you talk to the dairy order formulation branch. Again, I can get your number for that because I don't know. It's not something that I'm on top of in terms of federal and California standards. And I think, as I recall, that was legislatively mandated that California could keep their standards. But I don't know.
Okay, I don't see anybody else coming forward with a question. Elton, you have a question?
I have one or two, so you can throw the rock at me if you want to. But first of all, Annie's last question was about differential price surface, and I think Bill, you answered that as there would have to be a national hearing, but would point out the Southeast did go to a hearing, did get a decision, changed their differential surface without going to a national hearing. So it's not an absolute requirement.
Is that a temporary decision, or is that?
Nope. No, the part of the order that's changed is not the Part 1000 part, but they did change all the differentials in the Southeast, so it could be done. It was 1 and 2. Bill's very first question about complexity of hearing. Again, Bill. Bill's first question. Bill Van Dam's first question. Okay. Oh. Bill Van Dam's first question about complexities of hearing. Bill Wise, part of the administrative procedures process allows the department, they don't have to accept every proposal that's made. They can take, a slice of proposal, a dice of proposal, so they can effectively cut down the number of proposals to be very narrow, and no different than what California does for hearings.
And again, I know that you have a lot more experience with that than I do, because you've testified in a lot of hearings, and you've been involved with actually writing the proposals and submitting. So again, at our level of administering the federal milk order program, in terms of what the proposals look like, what the department does, that's not something that we deal with.
Two more. It's okay. On my note. Bill Wise, I want to follow up on one of Tom Wagner's questions. Since federal order reform, has there been any Class 3 or 4 price that's not nationwide? Class 3 price is the same across the country since federal order reform? Class 4 price is the same across the country since reform?
Nothing's coming to my head. So a different price in some federal order for 3 or 4
Right.
than another federal order?
Class 3 and 4 have been the same across the country in all federal orders since
I'm
reform.
not aware of, I'm not aware of any.
Okay. And last question is directed, starting from Bill Wise, but I'd like to ask a question of CDFA. I know they have representatives in the room today, and I know you're in here somewhere, but they can choose to respond or not. But Bill indicated, as a response to Tom Wagner's question, that AMS did not have the ability to do a complete number crunch. I mean, it's clear they don't have all of the numbers. And so there was so there was an offer to provide guidance on an order of interpretation. So if I think I saw Kevin in the room, if he could maybe comment, would CDFA be willing to help producers noodle out some of those numbers if they ask them?
In terms of the study, I hope I said that the decision whether we do one or don't do one would be made above me.
You did. You did. Sorry, didn't mean to paraphrase your answer.
Thank you.
There was one follow-up up here. Bill was asking the question, after the hearing has been set and the proposal's been accepted, during the hearing process, during the actual testimony, you cannot bring up another proposal or speak to a different proposal. It's limited to what's been put in and accepted, correct?
Yes.
Okay, question, Bill?
Proposals can be modified, but as far as new proposals, I'm not, in my experience, no, but certainly proposals have been modified.
One very quick question. As far as producer, distributor, handler exemptions are concerned, up to 3 million pounds per month, what does the exemption actually mean? How does it actually work? Does that mean you're depooled? Does that mean you're free to do your thing in the free market system? What does that actually mean? How does it actually operate as a producer, distributor?
Well, if you don't qualify as fully regulated by 3 million pounds of sales in the area, and if you're over 150,000 pounds a month, the exempt plant status is somebody less, is 150,000 pounds or less. Those plants are not subject to any regulation. If you're between 150,000 and 3 million, you're going to be partially regulated.
What does partially regulated mean?
That means you would, in terms of somebody with own farm production, you'd pay the difference between one and blend into the pool. So any class 1 pack, you would not pay anything for 2, 3, or 4. Just class 1. If you had packaged class 1 milk sold in the marketing area, you would pay into that respective federal orders pool the difference between 1 and blend, that price being applicable at the plant that bottled the milk. And anything over 3 million, then all your milk becomes priced. And so, if a producer distributor would have 2, 3, or 4, and those values were below the blend, well, then that would be a draw.
So the first 150,000 pounds is completely exempt, and then between 150,000 and 3 million, then becomes...
No. If you're at 3 million, it's all. But if you're below 3 million pounds, but above 150,000, then you can be partially regulated. But if you're a small entity, 150,000 pounds or less, then you're just exempt.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we've got a couple more questions.
My name's James Netto. My question is on block voting with the co-ops. Now, kind of what you said earlier, the co-op has the right to vote for you, but do you have a right to pull your vote out and vote individually for the program, whether you like it, up or down, whatever it is? Does every dairyman in California have the right to vote for himself, is what I'm asking you?
In terms of federal order programs, again, the Act permits block voting. The department doesn't tell cooperatives what they have to do. The cooperatives themselves can do what they want. So in terms of, from our standpoint, we don't say you have to block vote or you can't block vote. We say block voting is permitted. Is that answering the question?
Not really, because I'm still under, so if we belong to a co-op, we're captive on they own our vote?
If you're a member of a cooperative, the cooperative's permitted to block. It's up to them as to whether you vote on your own or as part of the block. It's not up to us.
Wow, that's almost communist. Okay, thank you.
James, I just wanted to say that with every federal order vote, the market administrators, and Bill, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but the at least in Federal Order 30, the market administrator will contact us and ask us whether or not we're going to cast a block vote on behalf of all our producers, or if you prefer to have votes sent to each individual producer. So it's an option under each vote, as I understand. Does that sound right?
Well, but again, we're given the cooperative.
The cooperative makes the decision on each vote, though, James.
So it'd be up to the membership to go to their board members and tell them, we want the right to vote for ourselves.
That would be something the cooperative members would need to do. You're right.
Thank you.
Clarify that.
Hello, my name's Joaquin Content. The California system that we're operating in today has been in place for probably close to 30 years. We developed it to encourage production in California, and it's worked quite well. As we can see, we've accumulated approximately over 20% of the nation's production, even though we only have a little over 10% of the nation's population. We have some things that are happening in the last 10 years that are affecting our system here to where we're reaching the point of failure. We have energy costs that have doubled. We have land prices that are doubled, in some cases tripled. We have an energy policy in the United States that was adopted in 2006 with ethanol that's putting a huge burden on the producers of livestock all across the country, but especially here in California, since we're deficit on grain in California. So with those three strikes against us, we're having a terrible, terrible time surviving as producers in California. One of the issues that we brought up to the state recently, as was addressed by Cornell, was dismissed as it's not important to us in California. If we were in the federal order, do you believe that perhaps the prices, since the system that we developed basically promotes lower prices so that we could be competitive to offload the products that we make, since we don't have perhaps the best market here? So my question is, and I'd just like to add to the question after I get done with it, a comment by someone else. My question is, would there be perhaps a spike or an increase in the value of milk across the country by us not having our system that keeps knocking down the prices across the country? And in a conversation that I had with Colin Peterson approximately a month ago, he said that if California was to come into the federal order, he believes that it would do as much good or more than having the Dairy Security Act. So, but go back to my question, please.
I can't offer opinions.
Oh.
You know, I can answer specific questions about how federal orders, but you're asking me something, a hypothetical opinion, and quite frankly, I can have opinions in my personal life, but not in my professional life, so I can't respond.
Hey, I want to thank Western for putting this together. It's been real informative. I did want to just clear up something that Richard had asked.
Rob, tell me who you are.
I'm sorry, Rob Van den Heuvel, Milk Producers Council. The fluid milk standards is something that's separate from the federal orders. Bill kind of danced around it, but it is a specific provision of law that was passed in the '96 Farm Bill. So that would not be changed by a decision to be part of or not part of. You talked about the hearing process, quite a bit of discussion about the hearing process. It does take longer. One of the biggest reasons that you talked about takes longer is the cross-examination, and it's important for folks in the room to understand why cross-examination is important. Since every decision has to be based on the record, you need to make sure that record is tested and solid. That's the point of cross-examination. That's something we don't have here in California. We get quick decisions. You know, maybe federal orders err on the too long. There may be somewhere in between that's best, and it sounds like you guys are trying to get there, but quick doesn't always mean good in terms of decisions. And then you talked a little bit about compensatory payments, but just to get a better understanding of that, compensatory payments are payments to the pool for packaged milk coming into the state, and how does that work? How is that tracked? You know, I go into Subway, I see out-of-state milk on the shelves there. It's probably from your Arizona order, quite frankly. How does that get tracked and accounted for in the pool in California?
Yeah. If it's coming in from a fluid distributing plant in Arizona, I'm not aware of any that aren't a pool plant. So that means they're paying the effective Arizona Class 1 price, whether that be in Phoenix or in Yuma. So yeah, the order that tries to against the Lehigh Valley decision on packaged milk. So if you are not regulated under the order you're selling in or some other federal order, and you have packaged Class 1 milk sales into the marketing area, then you are partially regulated, and you have 3 options to pay. It's only on your Class 1 sales in the area. You can pay the difference between 1 and blend, so Class 1 and blend price, at the location of the plant where the milk is bottled. You pay that into the uniform, you pay that into the Produce Settlement Fund. That money is then distributed across all producers as part of the computation of the blend price. If we have plants in California that have package sales in Arizona, that option is what's known as 76C. If you're regulated under a plant, a state program, if you're a Class 1 distributor that has packaged milk in the area, you're not a pool plant, but you're in an order, a situation like California that has classified pricing and market-wide pooling, the order looks to the effective Class 1 price under the state program, compares that to the effective Class 1 price under the federal program. If the state price is higher, there's no compensatory payment because you certainly have equality among handlers. If the federal order price is greater, then that difference between the federal order and state price is paid into the pool where the sales are and then distributed through the blend price. The third option is what's known as the Wichita option from a hearing they had in Wichita, Kansas years ago, and that's 76B. And that's what I talked to a little bit before, is that if you have packaged Class 1 sales in the area and you want to file a complete report, like a fully regulated handler, we're going to take your report, going to allocate your milk and price it as if you were fully regulated, and we're going to get a gross value of milk that you would pay had you been fully regulated. If you are paying at least that much to your regular supply, then again, there's no compensatory payment.
Thanks. Thanks, Bill. One more question.
Yeah. I'm still not clear. I think it's, for the producers here, I think it's one of the main questions. I'm not clear on our quota system, what would happen if it would stay in place, or how we're going to handle the quota system. So I don't think this is a question specifically for Bill, but maybe some of the other panelists or anybody else in the room can give me a better idea of what's going to happen with our quota system.
Yeah, certainly that again, I know it's mentioned earlier that some people in the room are part of organizations that have start a process to have Congress come in. That's all I can say.
Okay, I got one more question coming.
My name is Joe Machado, dairy producer. I don't know about the other producers in this room, but my brain is practically scrambled right now about all the technical stuff. I think most of us came here today to find out the pros and cons, what's it mean to producers, what's it mean to processors, what's it mean to quota holders. And from what I'm understanding, if we do petition a hearing, we can basically tailor fit our order to address all those concerns. So I address this question to Bill or any of the members of the panel in a short synopsis. What's the pros for producers and the pros and cons for producers and the pros and cons for processors, and can those issues be addressed if we go forward with this? Because I believe us as producers, this has kind of started at a grassroots level, and we need to take care, all the producers in here, I am just sick and tired of the regulatory bodies trying to, organize my future, or, we need to stand up as producers, I believe. And this is a tool that can break us from this regulatory body from, controlling our futures. Thank you.
Again, as far as good or bad, that's not an area that I go in. I don't know if anybody else wants to comment.
I'll take a crack. And I'm wading into this cautiously, Joey. Certainly the question that would come to mind is where are some additional dollars perhaps captured under the federal order? There's some obvious ones. Certainly the Class 1 differential would be one. Class 1 under federal orders would include some products that are in 2 and 3 in California. Class 1 products imported the value might be captured there. Class 2 differential, the depends on the month, might be a little higher under federal orders. And then there's that simple case of 4A and 4B that definitely could have a major impact on price. Now, that's a real rough cut. That is not guaranteed by any stretch of the imagination. In my opinion, there's going to be a lot of interest in this hearing from processors, because what's the other side of higher producer pay prices? Higher raw milk costs. And we know that discussion quite well here in California, that we've gone through a number of times. So those are just a couple of thoughts. I'd be interested to see if my other three panelists may have some thoughts on the benefits and the
I think Tom's points are well taken, and I'll just emphasize that there's a lot about what might come out of it here that we don't know about yet. It's kind of an evasive answer, but that's just what it is. There's a lot of things that are not set in stone. The orders itself do allow for some flexibility. How much, I don't really know. It really depends on how the hearing turns out with the testimony. And so it's kind of tough to make that decision, but I think Tom's points are good ones.
No comments now?
No comments.
I think thanks for the points, Tom. One thing I think that's important to keep in mind is just the uncertainty. I think what Eric just said, there's a lot that would need to be determined. And we can't just look at the prices and do an apples-to-apples comparison. There's just a lot of intricacies in the system, and I think that uncertainty that result, what would it mean for California? How many plants would choose people? What would the producer prices be? And so I think the uncertainty regarding the pricing would be something to keep in mind.
Yeah, and for the record, I'd like to say that much as I'd like to try and answer that, there are so many qualifying features to it that I'm very reluctant to wade into it. I'll bore you all to death and go off on tangents like I'm doing now.
Okay, I see the last two questions in the mic.
Well, I really didn't have a question, more of a comment. I think I'm concerned with California Dairymen making decisions under the conditions we're in. We're in, as everybody knows, the real tenuous conditions, and sometimes under those thoughts and words and the way we do things, sometimes you don't make the best decisions. I just kind of want to remind people we got $1 billion worth of quota in California. I was on the quota committee, and there's $1 billion worth of quota sitting in this room. And there's never been a federal order yet that the quota system has worked in. And I've seen a lot of them, I've heard a lot of them, and I don't believe that it would work in that system. The other one is, we've had our concerns with the state system, but when has the federal government ever done anything better than the state? When we go to DC, it's usually bad news. So there's a whole lot of things to think about, guys, and I think we need to really concentrate on these things. Thank you.
Paul Pacheco. This question is going to be addressed to Annie. I'm sure she's done her figures like she usually does. What is the comparison in a time frame of how California price has compared to national price? Not in the short term, as Dominic has said, we've been struggling, but in a longer term, because the process we're going into will take us into the future. So let's look on the past. Is there any numbers that you can tell us, hey, federal order price has been this high for this long versus the short term, and what we're going through now that's pressuring us to maybe make a decision that we wouldn't if we had more information?
I think that goes back to what I tried to mention earlier, is you can do a comparison of class prices, but unfortunately it doesn't give you a clear picture of what the producer's actually getting. Bill mentioned that earlier, if a handler chooses not to pool, they're not necessarily obligated to follow the minimum class price. So you don't know what exactly that producer would be getting from that specific plant. So trying to come up with an apples-to-apples comparison and see what a producer without order is getting compared to what the producer's getting in California is not necessarily really clear cut to make. So I'm sorry, I don't have like a number that I could throw at you right now. Maybe somebody else has an answer to that question.
I'll answer it for you. It's very simple. In the federal order, they pay the class 3. In Wisconsin, the biggest cheese state in the country, the average premium there is probably $1.50. They do not pay under class 3. If a plant paid less than Class 3, they would have no milk. Very simple. I don't know what you're trying to hide. The facts are the facts. Class 3 to Class 4. First 4 months of this year, $2.45 difference. 2011, over $2 difference between Class 3, 4B. Those are the facts. They're easy. What are you trying to hide?
Well,
it's simple.
And I'm not hiding. I'm actually wide open here, feeling like a lot of eyes are on me. But I think what I was trying to say is, you can't really, I understand that they were paid in Class 3. The thing is that the dynamics are different in different markets. In California, our milk supply is long, like we've heard a lot recently. So processors might be less inclined to pay premiums, for example, to get that milk. Because I don't really want to go into an argument, it's your point, and it's very possible that producers in Wisconsin are getting a higher price, and I'm not going to argue with that. But I'm just saying you can't really make a comparison saying California producers get a higher price just by switching to federal orders. There's a lot more intricacies as we've seen today.
Okay, my question for Bill is then, if we had the federal order Class 3 price in California, what would the plant have to pay?
Well, it would, again, if the plant has Class 3 utilization and it receives milk from producers who are qualified under the order, that they pay the Class 3 price. That goes into the pool and be reblended across that. So the handler's cost is always a class price. So a Class 3 value is what the minimum value would be due.
So if you took 2011, compared Class 3 to 4B, that's over $2 difference. 40% of our production's approximately in 4B or Class 3, which whatever would be. So it'd be 80 cents just on that component alone. And then you have the effect on Class 1, 2, and 3 in California. So we can come pretty close as to what the impacts are. I'm just kind of disappointed that someone doesn't want to actually tell these producers what it actually is going to mean, because it is $1 million a day that we're losing because somebody doesn't want to lead.
Okay, seeing no more questions, I would like to thank everybody, first of all, for being here. Because without you being here, we just wouldn't get anything done. And sometimes we feel like we can't get anything done anyway. But if you have any questions that you didn't want to ask in front of everybody, if you would send it to Western United, we'll send it to the appropriate party and see if we can still get it closer for you. So with that, I'd like to give a hand to the panel and thank you all for coming.